Hey guys, this is Amber Calm. I'm an astrologer, and I'm here today to talk to you about the upcoming eclipse in Libra on October 2nd, which is going to have us in a space of having to make some kind of sacrifice, having some unexpected realizations, and opening up to receive something new into our lives. So let's get into it. So this eclipse is occurring in Libra at about 10 degrees based on the tropical measurement, obviously. This is a solar eclipse, which is also basically a new moon. All solar eclipses are new moons, by the way, and all lunar eclipses are full moons. But when something is a solar eclipse, obviously all of the eclipses always occur on the nodes. Okay, so the whole topic of the north node and the south node is a whole other discussion. However, and a complicated one at that. It's a bit controversial, to be honest, because there are schools of astrology that view them a little differently. But overall, we can say that when a eclipse occurs, it is always destabilizing, and it is always quite shocking for us. Now, as far as how that plays out in your chart and what your sign is, will tell us a lot more about how much that will manifest into real actual events outside of you. And we'll go through the signs here in the video as well. I'll try to tag them all below. However, for everyone, there is going to be at least an internal sense of uncertainty and destabilization. Now, the overall gist of the North and South Node have a lot to do with basically our our soul path, our experience, our journey. Again, there is a bit of like a controversy around these subjects, but for the most part, we can say that um, that these are very destabilizing energies that are meant to sort of show us what is not really working for us. And that's really the big theme that I see with this new moon, especially, and with this eclipse, is this concept of releasing something and having a new beginning. This eclipse is going to be taking place on the south node. Okay. The south node is generally seen as something that is about releasing and letting go of something or sacrificing something. Okay. Obviously, there are different traditions around such things, but that's the general idea. The last eclipse that I could find that was like this at the same degree on the south node in Libra was October of 2005. So if you're old enough like me that you can think back to what you might have been doing then that theme is probably what's going to come up again for you now. Um, Now, also, we did have a moon in Libra, or actually, it was an eclipse in Libra last year in October. And what I see about both of those dates, unfortunately, is a sense of conflict escalating. Okay. Libra has a lot to do with the agreements that we have made with our alliances, with our relationships, and with general cooperation. So when an eclipse occurs here, there can be a lot of issues around those topics, right? A lot of us remember that last October was the start, or really the escalation of the conflict between Palestinians in Gaza and Israel. And in my search, I was also able to find such escalations in October of 2005. So I definitely fear for that to continue to escalate given these energies. But I also just want to say that in our personal lives, again, this will really depend on where Libra lands in your chart. But it's really meant to show us what is not working for you anymore. Okay. And this is a theme that we've been discussing for a while. That really started, especially in July, with both Neptune and Saturn going retrograde at the same time in Pisces. And also, we did have an eclipse in Pisces just recently here in September. So there's a theme that's going on through the end of the year of us really taking the rose-colored glasses off, of really seeing things for what they really are, seeing through the lies of something. And so I think that's a lot of what's going to come out too with this upcoming eclipse, because if you look at the chart for this eclipse in October, you'll see that both Mercury and Black Moon Lilith are conjunct the eclipse. Now, Mercury obviously has a lot to do with our conscious mind, with news that we share, with what we say, what is communicated, okay? And Lilith has a lot to do with kind of our lower impulses and darker thoughts. Now, there are some positives to say about Libra, I suppose, or I'm sorry, for Lilith in a different context. Um, as sort of the dark feminine. And I know that that's been kind of romanticized in a good way, in my opinion, in more modern astrology. But in traditional astrology, Lilith is definitely seen as more so our animalistic natures. And so to see these two together on an eclipse is very intense and is really going to have some shocking real revelations. Okay. I really see some scandals coming out more. And I also think it's important for you to know that when there is a solar eclipse, we feel the effects of a solar eclipse up to a month before the actual eclipse happens, and we feel the after effects for up to a year after it happens. Okay. A lunar eclipse, which we just experienced here in September in Pisces, is something that we experience for up to a month beforehand, and the after effects last about 3 months. So a solar eclipse is definitely more impactful. And so I say all that to say that I think that a lot of this energy is already in play with what we see coming about P. Diddy and all of that. I think there will be some very shocking war things coming out about that as far as who was associated with that as well, and even beyond. There are probably other scandals that I don't even know about that are going to come out all the way up into this upcoming presidential election in the States, which that again is a whole other can of worms to open up. Obviously, the presidential election is going to be very intense and explosive, but that's a video for another time. But with all of that said, like I said, there's a lot of, I just feel a lot of kind of Pisces nature out of kind of what's going on here throughout the end of the year of people really just having enough, basically, of really just being fed up with being fed lies and just not really falling for it anymore, or just kind of like seeing through it a lot more easily. And the thing about it that's interesting is that a lot of these things, both on a global scale and in our personal lives, were probably things that on some level we sort of knew, but maybe we didn't take it that seriously, or we were just avoiding it, or not really dealing with it. Saturn has a lot to do with karma and the concept of karma. And the concept of karma is actually very complex by comparison to what we think of it in the Western world, that I don't really have time to get into today. So don't necessarily think of karma as like, I did a thing, so I earned a thing. That's not necessarily that simple. However, uh, on that with that said, I do see a big theme of people kind of dealing with the consequences of their actions, basically. So if there's something in your life that, maybe it's a relationship that just hasn't really been going well and they've been taking a lot more than they're giving. Or something like that, but you've been telling yourself like, oh, it's going to work out, like they're just having a hard time, or this person really loves me. You're not going to be able to lie to yourself about that anymore. Through the end of the year, they're going to continue to be, and again, this really started in July, but this is really like a hard hitting eclipse on this same front, where it's going to kick up even further, I feel. um but I really feel that this honestly really truly began back in July, if you really think back on it. But it's going to become harder and harder to ignore the actual truth. And like I said, that could be a relationship, that could be a job, that could be where you live, that could be a belief system. We're going to go through all the signs and to kind of talk more about how that might be affecting you. And obviously, your specific natal chart and doing an actual reading is the way to know for sure, for sure. But with all of that said, all of us are kind of in this headspace now where we are kind of seeing things more and more for what they are. And we're like, oh wow, it's just like I think P. Diddy is a great example, right? Like we all knew, I think, I hope on some level that those things were happening, but we didn't really know who was involved. We didn't really know to what degree and things like that. And so it's going to become more and more shocking as we go. And this eclipse is going to be a huge aspect of that experience. Another thing that's interesting about this eclipse is that it is conjunct a fixed star called Vindematrix. Vindematrix is not considered a favorable star. I hate to deliver the bad news of that. And I swear there's good news to all of this too. But with that said, Vindematrix is said to be about having sort of a distrustful nature, of having a sense of skepticism, of being sort of in a depressed mood. It's often called the widow maker, even as well. So I think that a lot of this is us really approaching things with this more skeptical nature, rightfully so, and I think that's actually a good thing, to be honest with you. But there's also just this sense of loss with it being associated as being a widow maker, right? There's a sort of sense of loss here and a clearing out of old agreements, old promises, obviously with the idea of widowmaker, that's like the end of a marriage, right? Or, but I don't think that it'll be that for everybody, obviously. But for some of us, it might be. But really, it's deeper than that. A lot of ancient astrologers really associated marriage with just kind of general lawful agreements and a sense of cooperation and all of those kind of things. So I think that a lot of that's going to be brought into question where people are going to learn a lot about people maybe that have been in charge or our leaders, things of that nature that have us look at them some type of way now, like, well, maybe I don't really want you in charge now that I know about all of this. Um, and that's exactly what it's supposed to do. This is supposed to be a wake-up call for you, okay? Whatever it is that is happening. Now, you should also know that if something is coming up, because it can be easy for this sense of crisis to come up and be like, oh, woe is me, I can't believe this is happening to me. Because it could be a attachment, something that you are very attached to, okay? Something that you were very sure was right for you or what you were supposed to be doing. And you should know that if a crisis is really coming out at this time about that thing, that actually wasn't for you, okay? That actually wasn't your path. And the whole concept around eclipses is this shaking up that puts you back on that really like recenters you on your life path more than ever. So it's ultimately for your greater good, whatever it is that is coming up for you right now. And that's something that you're going to have to really try to trust and believe. And that's where that kind of Pisces aspect comes in. Of Neptune and Saturn retrograding there, and the after effects of our eclipse in Pisces is this concept of like having this more forgiving nature and just kind of being willing to go with the flow and being willing to kind of trust the universe and that you are exactly where you need to be and that if these things are happening then that is actually what is right for you, and that can be really difficult to accept if it's something that you've been investing so much in and so sure about. But that's something that if you take away anything from this video, I really hope that what that is the main thing that you take away from this, that you can rest assured that if this is happening to you right now, that's actually what's supposed to happen to you. Okay. So if something comes up and it's like, wow, now I'm forced to move somewhere. Now I'm forced to quit this job. Now I'm forced to XYZ, that actually was supposed to happen. And you are going in a better direction for yourself. And even though it doesn't feel like it right now, this is actually a gift to you. Okay. This is a gift that the universe is giving you. And it's funny because, a lot of us will sit and kind of like pray for that and say, like, okay, please put me on my divine path. And then the universe will do that and be like, bam, here you go. Did it fast for you. And it can be so like, disorienting and shocking that we feel like we didn't get our prayers answered when actually we did. So just keep that in mind as you go through this and try to keep your wits about you, and do not react too emotionally, because another aspect that I really see with this too is that I see how Mars is in Cancer here for this eclipse. Mars does not do well in Cancer. It's in fall in Cancer. And the reason for that is because Cancer is a very emotionally reactive sign and Mars takes action. Mars wants to fight, right? So Mars is actually going to be here for a long time. It does briefly visit Leo for a short time between November 3rd and January 6th. But mainly it's going to be in Cancer. And what's important about that right now is that it's actually going to be entering its pre-shadow period before its retrograde. Okay. It's entering the pre-shadow period on October 6th, and it doesn't retrograde until December 6th. Okay. However, all the way up until April of 2025, it's primarily, except for that month, well, 2 months, I guess, there, it's primarily going to be in Cancer, which again isn't necessarily a good thing because it's in fall there. Now, when Mars is in Cancer, this is a time in which people have a really strong sense of fighting for their safety, fighting for their homeland, fighting for their people, their family, their beliefs, and what have you, right? It's a very strong, like, patriotic vibe. And a lot of these fights can be very emotional in nature, which isn't really a good thing because we can be maybe overreacting sometimes, or we can maybe be acting from a place of like reactivity rather than a productive place. And so I'm bringing that up now because it is now entering that pre-shadow phase, so that it would be better for us to take action on anything Mars related and get those things kind of nailed down now before it goes retrograde. Um, in December, because once it's retrograde, it's like you're buckled in for that ride. Once Mars goes retrograde, there's not going to be a whole lot that you're going to really be able to do from there. So this is the time for you to really have any kind of tough conversations that you need to have with people. And all of that good stuff. Okay. So let's talk through some of the signs and how that's going to play out for your sign, because I think that's really the most important thing that we can discuss. So for our Aries, this eclipse is going to be happening in the seventh house. Okay. So this is your house of relationship and partnerships. Now, remember, wherever the eclipse happens, and I should have said this in the beginning of the video actually, is where you are going to have to make a sacrifice in order to gain something else. Okay. So Aries is going to need to sacrifice something regarding their partnerships, previous agreements, and things of that nature. They need to release that in order to bring new relationships into their lives. Okay. You won't be able to let in that new relationship until you sacrifice something. So, like I said, that could be maybe an old partner, maybe it's an old arrangement, it might even be your own sense of identity and independence, actually, for some of you. But regardless of all of that, really pay attention to some of the faded figures that are coming into your life at this time, because this eclipse could really bring about a faded connection, a past life connection for you. So for my single Aries out there, that might be a really good thing for you. So if you're a single Aries, then I would maybe say, right, like maybe you need to finally let go of that ex, or maybe you need to get some closure on a relationship, or maybe you even have some friends or agreements from your past that are actually holding you back from being able to date more openly. Maybe it's something like that for you. Whatever it is, there's something, and that's for my single Aries, obviously. If you're with somebody, then there might be some shifts that need to happen in your relationship. Actually, there might be some tough conversations that need to happen there, or a reconfiguring of kind of your dynamic in order to improve the relationship. For other Aries, they might, if they are already in a partnership, it could be that your partner is going through some sort of major shift that you are going to have to really help them through or shoulder with them or something like that. They might be going through some type of crisis here as well. Um, Now, wherever this eclipse happens could also be where we learn some things that we're kind of shocked by and are also a little unsavory. So for some Aries that are in partnerships, they might learn something really unsavory about their partner. I hate to tell you. Maybe you learn a secret that they've been keeping or something like that. Or like I said, maybe you learn some bad news about them that they have to go through and that you have to help them through. And again, don't get too disheartened by those changes. Just look at them as a time to say to yourself, right? Like, okay, this is a change that needs to happen. Maybe this is a change that's been, been coming for a long time, that hasn't been dealt with, right? And so now this is a redirection to sort of get you into kind of the right headspace. With Mars entering its shadow and your fourth house, that is kind of bringing in a lot of things around your home life as well. So I kind of see like partnership and home life coming up a lot for you guys. And again, I'm bringing that up now because it's in the pre-shadow period. So if there is something that needs to come up around your home life, now is the time to do that. So let's say you want to make like a renovation to your home, or you think you're going to need to move. A lot of Aries are probably going to be moving actually, or doing some sort of renovations on their home. Now is the time to do that, because once it goes retrograde, it's going to be a lot tougher. Now, maybe you do a renovation now, you might need to revisit it later because of that retrograde. However, don't do it when the retrograde starts. That would definitely not be a good time to do it, right? So if those are things that need to be dealt with, do that now before December. Another aspect of this for some of our Aries could be having conflict even at home, or conflict with family members. So that's something to keep in mind as well, right? If those things come up for you, that's something that is more worth having a conversation about earlier rather than later. Because again, once it gets in December, it's going to be a lot harder to really control the situation. Okay. And on that note, I would say now, and also when it's retrograde, but also now, be very wary of the way that you approach those conversations, because it could definitely turn into a fight that lasts all the way until next spring, with family members, because you maybe came from a reactive place. And it's going to be hard not to do that, because with Mars and Cancers, other people might be coming at you some type of way. Okay. Other people might be coming at you sideways, actually. But just take it slow, don't react, don't get into it, because again, that's going to end up turning into this long standing argument all the way until next year. So I would just try to take it easy on those fronts. For Taurus, this eclipse is going to be happening in your sixth house, which is the house of health. So you may have a health crisis come up actually during this time. Now, if you do, this crisis is probably has more to do with your habits and your lifestyle rather than something that is out of your control, like a disease or something like that. Okay. This time period is a really good time for you to look at changing your lifestyle in some way. So maybe this is like the medicines that you take. This could be like an exercise routine that you do or some unhealthy habit that you have. Okay. Now, being that it's in Libra, I really feel like, and also with Lilith there being about sort of our primitive desires, this could be about maybe something that you have been indulging in that you haven't been thinking about, or maybe this is like an unresolved emotional issue that is playing a role here. Um, as well, especially regarding women, because Lilith and Libra are sort of both feminine in nature. So maybe there's a feminine hang up of some kind, maybe with people in your family, or maybe this is like um something feminine in nature for you. Take that how it resonates. But overall, there is the good news about it is that there is a way to overcome this because if it's the sixth house, then this is something that you can definitely change. So really just take a look at your overall health and well-being and not from a place of punishing yourself like I'm not good enough, I'm not working out enough or something, because that won't be the answer. Okay. I'm going to tell you right now, that's not the answer. The answer is more likely actually that maybe you are suffering in some type of way and you've been trying to cope. Or something along those lines, I think is a lot more likely here. And again, keep in mind the Pisces nature here of being gentle on ourselves and forgiving and understanding. This isn't just about other people, but also really being loving and forgiving towards ourselves. And so maybe I think for some Tauruses, this actually might be an internalized thing where they are not aware of things that they are blaming themselves for, or maybe something that they're turning inward on themselves when that isn't necessarily appropriate to do so. For some of my other Tauruses, this might be more work related as well. So you might need to take like a different approach to how you do work or just your work life balance. The sixth house has a lot to do with our daily routines, our daily lifestyle. So things like your commute or like your office or something. These are all things that might need some addressing and rearranging. And this eclipse is going to go, bam, let me just go ahead and show you real quick what it is that is not working. Okay. It's going to be really obvious what it is that isn't working anymore. That is a thing you need to get rid of. Okay. I really also think on that health front that for a lot of Tauruses is actually going to be more like environmentally related to. Um, so thinking about like those two things in conjunction, it could be that there's something about maybe you're overworked or maybe um, maybe you need to check your house for mold or something. I don't know. I just get the feeling like that there's something environmental here when it comes to Tauruses. Again, a full reading would be the best way to find out. So definitely contact me if that's something you want to do. But with Mars also going into its pre-shadow period in your third house, this is keeping you super busy. So I think that's going to make it really hard for a lot of Tauruses to really navigate this because they have both their sixth and their third highlighted, and both of these are about doing a lot of errands and being really busy and just having a lot of stuff being thrown at them. On a positive note, this could be a new insight for maybe a business project or somebody that you can align with to have important conversations, more business ideas, and things like that. But on the other hand, with Mars being in your third house, this can, for a long time until like next April, really, more or less, you can have a lot of conflicts and arguments with people that are in your environment as well that are third house related. So, third house related people would be people that are sort of considered your colleagues. So, this could be siblings, this could be cousins, coworkers, neighbors, things like that. Could bring up some conflicts for you. Okay. So, if you have some sort of difficult conversations you need to have with these kind of people, this is the time to do that before it goes retrograde. Do not wait until December. In fact, by December, just even back off of it. I honestly think Tauruses should probably avoid family maybe for like the holidays and even Aries too, really, to be honest. Come around Christmas when Mars goes retrograde there, that'll be interesting for them. But that said, Mars does fairly well in the third house. It's actually considered the best house in Vedic astrology for Mars to be in. So there's a lot of opportunity here. And again, that's the theme that I overall see when it comes to this solar eclipse is that, yes, there is a crisis that comes up, but do not let that crisis distract you from the opportunity that it is also trying to serve you. Okay. So Mars being in the third is a really great place for it to be. It can give you a lot of momentum to maybe expand on some skills. Like I said, maybe make some new connections, maybe like business connections. You could get business out of that, and things along those lines. But just really pay attention to your reactivity. Okay. That's true for everybody, but especially with Mars in your third house, you're coming off a lot feistier than you think. Taurus, okay? You're gonna feel a little more fighty. You're gonna feel like I got stuff to say. I'm ready to like get out and say it. Um, and I would encourage you to do that, but just make sure that it doesn't come from a place that is emotional and reactive as much as it is what you really mean. Like you could end up in a situation where you say something that you don't mean. So really think through that, maybe journal about it or something before that. I think like Cancer is a good energy for writing something down or journaling or really like sitting with it before reacting. Just make sure it's coming from a place like that. Okay. For my Geminis, this eclipse is happening in your fifth house. Okay. So this is the house of children and romance and projects, especially like business projects or projects that we really love, like our hobbies and things like that. So this could be a really good time for Geminis to get some new insights and business ideas. Okay. They could get some divine inspiration on that front. However, if you do get a business idea, you probably are going to have to make, again, some kind of sacrifice in order to enact that business idea. So just keep that in mind and know that that's going to be part of it. Maybe you're going to not be able to have as much fun because you have to go do this business idea. Maybe you're not going to be able to spend as much time with your kids or something like that. On the other hand, this could bring up something about children for our Geminis. So maybe some of our Geminis are trying to get pregnant, some of them might be having kids, or maybe they're just are, having major events come up around children for them if that's relevant to them, right? If they have them. Um, and this can be something interesting for them as well. But again, even in that context, there's something that has to be sacrificed here. And I mean, anytime you have a kid, obviously, you got to make a lot of sacrifices, right? And so those might be things that they're facing as well. But I overall feel for Gemini that this is a really positive eclipse for them, to be honest. They have Jupiter in their own sign as well. It's retrograde. It's going to be retrograde in their own sign, but still, this is the combination of these things almost make me feel like they're getting a second chance at something. So maybe they're getting a second chance at a romance because again, because this is the house of romance too, right? So if they're in an unhealthy relationship, that could reach a crisis point, or maybe they learn something about someone they've been dating that causes them to want to separate from that. But on the other hand, the fifth house is said to be the house of good karma. So maybe you can find some positive developments, maybe some protection there as well, especially with Jupiter sort of supporting you. So I think some of those people, um, that's actually going to work out in their favor and be very lucky for them. So maybe they'll get a second chance at a relationship or a second chance at a business idea that they thought was, dead and gone. Maybe they come up with an insight of how they could maybe revisit that or do something with that, something along those lines. And I think like from a business aspect, that makes a lot is something they should really use, Gemini, you should really use to your advantage because Mars is going into shadow in your second house all the way and it's going to be shadow and retrograde and then shadow again until April of 2025. Okay. Now the second house is the house of our money and our financial stability. So that's something that you might be focused on and you might have some stressful situations around that time, especially when it's retrograde in December. You might need to readdress your budget or something like that. So this is the time while it's pre-shadow to address that and maybe just focus on reconfiguring your budget. Where can I not overspend? Like really focus on not overspending because when Mars is in the second, we can definitely want to overspend. So those are things to be aware of as well. For my cancers, this eclipse is happening in your fourth house. So, wow, for cancers, this is going to enhance their psychic abilities a lot. And they're also going to be super feisty because Mars is in their sign. But anyway, um, this is especially if you have any placements close to like 10 degrees of Cancer. And this is true for anybody, by the way, but especially cardinal signs. So, like Cancer, Capricorn, Libra, and Aries. If you are one of those four signs and you have a placement close to 10 degrees of that sign, you're going to feel this the most. And that is it's going to be more likely to come out as outer external events. Okay. But with that said, for our cancers, being that this eclipse is happening in their fourth house, they might be moving or making some huge change to their home life. Okay. So This could be more about a family dynamic. Maybe they have a shifting family dynamic in some way. Um, maybe they learn something very unsavory about a family member. Maybe some secrets come out about their family or a family member or like in their ancestry or something like that. This could be a good time for them to kind of dig into that actually, to dig into kind of where they come from ultimately and how that plays a role in their life today. But I think a lot of cancers are going to be making major changes to their home over the next 6 months. Like I said, that could be moving, that could be a shifting family dynamic or something like that. But this is a really good energy to lean into and use that to release any kind of like past patterns, any deep psychological hangups that might have to do with how you were raised or with your family or expectations that your family has put on you. That's something I really think that Cancer should think about, actually. The more I think about that, I think that Cancer should really think about their mindsets that they have today and where those came from. Um, the habits that they have that maybe came from their family members um, or the ideas that their family members put into their heads as far as what they need to be or what they need to do to be successful or what life is supposed to look like. You can really break some generational curses, Cancer, if you really like lean into this eclipse energy. So try not to be too thrown off when all those secrets come out, because I really think like a lot of cancers are, like I said, are gonna be moving or learn something about a family member that's not great or something like that. Try not to be too tripped up by that, okay? And instead take that as a sign of what is being shown to you that is holding you back or needs to be released in some way, right? Now, Mars is affecting cancers until next spring, like I said. That's a lot of energy for them. So a lot of them are going to be super ambitious and motivated and energized, okay? Make sure you use that energy on something, because if it doesn't go anywhere, it's going to just bam, it's going to cause you to explode on people, and you're going to end up saying stuff that you don't mean, and you're going to end up causing fights that you don't mean to be in all the way until next spring, okay? So use that on maybe like career development or working out or on your physique or something like that. Um, a lot of you guys could end up having issues with maybe like authority figures, like bosses or parents or something like that. So really, just focus on what you can do. Okay, like I said, like focusing on your career or focusing on making some type of progress in like a tangible way, rather than having emotional responses to these figures. Because when they approach you, they might approach you with some type of crisis. Like you might have maybe like a father figure be like, "Hey, I'm going to tell you," like an example that I could see playing out for a Cancer, right, would be maybe a father figure coming out and being like, "Well, I just want you to know you're no longer in the will anymore because blah blah blah," or something. You know what I mean? And you're just like, I can't believe this. F you. Like you might want to attack them. Do not do that. Do not do that. Okay. Cancer is the most likely sign to be reactive and triggered during this time. So Cancer, you gotta be real honest with yourself about your attachments, and your, because I think for cancers, a lot of it's going to be like a sense of safety issue. Okay. Um, so really dig deep into your psychology. Like, why do I feel unsafe with this? Am I truly unsafe? Or is that just a belief system that I've been raised to think that I have to have it this type of way or else I'm unsafe? You know what I mean? Again, with the Pisces nature coming in, be forgiving, be understanding, go with the flow. I know that's easier said than done, but know that this is actually how it's supposed to go down and where you're meant to be. Okay. For our Leos, this eclipse is happening in your third house. So the third house is associated with like communication, short trips, errands, practical matters, your local environments. Okay. So you might have a really important conversation during this time with somebody, and you might be reevaluating your approach to all of those topics that I just talked about, but especially communication, I feel like is going to come up a lot for you. And this isn't, the third house, we always talk about how it's about outer communication, but actually, the third house is also about your internal dialogue, like your inner mind. Okay. So you might need to release some old thought patterns that have been holding you back. Okay. Now, also for some of you, this could be also about releasing connections to certain people in your life as well. So this could be neighbors, siblings, coworkers, right? Things like that. Um, for some of you, this could have to do with a short trip or some sort of move. If you have that come up, I do not recommend that you do a trip at the beginning of the month when this eclipse occurs. I would wait until a little later in the month to do so. Okay. Um, just because it's a lot of energy to be to be doing any kind of trip with. I would instead really use this energy to more towards assessing kind of your internal dialogue. This would be a really good time, by the way, for you to start a new course. Maybe you join a teaching program, or you could also be working on a business project, maybe updating a website or social media campaign or something like that. But all of those things, just keep a really open mind, right? Like, don't box yourself in, because a lot of this is going to be about really broadening your horizons in all of those areas. You also might learn some interesting secrets too, through social media or about a friend, or I don't know. I feel like Leo is going to be up on the gossip more than anybody else. Now, Mars is going to be shadow in your 12th house primarily until next year, until next spring. And though it will briefly enter your own sign actually from November and December, but I'll put that in a different video. But for now, focus on the fact that it's pre-shadow, okay, in your 12th house. Now, this can bring up a lot of subconscious fears and hangups. That's why I say I think a lot of this for Leo is about their internal dialogue. The outer stuff is just a manifestation, okay? The outer stuff is just a manifestation of what is going on inside of you. So really spend some time doing some internal work as well. You may have some memories resurface, or maybe you'll have some interesting dreams about these sort of things. This might be a good time for you to maybe dig into your subconscious through like meditation or like a regression or hypnotism or something. Um, so that you can address any unresolved feelings that you have, especially anger, especially unresolved anger. Okay, so you can have some angry feelings starting to surface for you. So if you do, really pay attention to what is coming up in that regard and acknowledge that anger. You need to address and release whatever anger and fears are coming up. Okay. So if you can do that and release that, then you can also release any self-sabotaging behaviors or anything that is just getting in your way that you're not quite aware of, so that you can be open for all of these new things that are trying to come into your life in the third house here. Like I said, this can be, you might meet some new people, you might meet some like interesting business partners, you might be out at a little town hall and meet some people that have some cool ideas and join a new club, and boom, now you have all this extra business or something like that. But that can't happen if you don't go because you have this unconscious fear about trusting new people or something like that. That's just an example of how I could see it play out, but that's something to be aware of if you're a Leo, okay? For our Virgos, this eclipse is going to be happening in your second house. So this second house is the house of resources, security, and all of the things that nourish us, like food. Actually, food is associated with the second house, as well as a lot of our possessions, especially loose possessions like jewelry and coins and stuff like that are all associated with the second house. Okay. So I see a really big shift in this area of life for you. You might need to start a new or you may be starting a new financial venture, have some sort of shift in values here. Okay. But like everybody else, in order to get the progress you're looking for here, you need to release something. Okay. There is a sacrifice that you need to make in order to have new money come in. So if you're a Virgo and you're sitting there like, man, I really need to, I want to up my money. I'm trying to get new money opportunities and things feel a little stagnant in this area. That's because there is something energetically really holding you back that you need to get rid of. Okay. It could be like a literal possession of some kind. So I think for a lot of Virgos, a good way to go about this energetically might be to like clean out their closet and donate some items, or maybe have a garage sale or something like that. Or you might have to sacrifice some other things too, like like your comfort, something that you're comfortable with, right? Second house is being comfortable. It's also going to be the house of family. So maybe you're going to have to spend less time with family in order to, make the money that you're trying to make. Whatever that is, just really pay attention to the new ideas that are coming up, because as long as you're willing to let go of some of your stuff, and I know for Virgo that can sometimes be difficult. You might need to let go of some of your stuff, right? And cleanse that, clear out. I feel like a lot of Virgos are going through a clearing out, and they already have been with both Saturn and Neptune retrograding through their seventh house. For a lot of you guys, this might be that you need to let go of maybe some business partners, even, or maybe clients, or some sense of agreement that you have or something like that. Relationships, I think for Virgos, not just in possessions, but also in the sense of like agreements and relationships, they're just going through a year of just cleansing out, of cutting the chaff. So Virgos are going through it, man. Like a lot of I have a lot of Virgo clients that are coming to me like, why? Why is this so hard? Hang in there, Virgo. It's going to get better for you next year when Saturn leaves your sign, okay? But right now, you're in a space where you need to clear out some stuff, okay? So think about what you have or work on that isn't of actual value to you. This is really about this eclipse is really challenging you, okay? To ask yourself, what do you really value? Okay? And what is this thing bringing you value? So an example of this might be, right, like if you were clearing out your closet, like, do I really need this jacket? I literally haven't even worn this jacket in 5 years. Like, am I ever going to wear this jacket again? Why am I hanging on to this? That's just an example, but that's sort of the approach you want to take to have the best results, okay? Um, and a side note is that this house is also associated with food. So I think that some of you might be making some dietary shifts too. So that's something to think about as well. Now, Mars, as I said, is in pre-shadow, and it's primarily going to be in your 11th house until next April. The 11th house is the house of our hopes and dreams, okay? So this gives you a lot of energy and ambition to to get the thing that you've been like dreaming and pining over for years. Maybe it's a business idea, maybe it's a type of relationship or just a lifestyle that you're trying to live. You can get that this year. Okay. However, you are going to have to put a lot of effort into it, especially in December when it's retrograde. But nevertheless, I think that you are very likely to succeed here if you put the work in, especially by next April. I think next year is going to look so much better for Virgos. But you might be working really hard at this time. Maybe you're working towards the title, maybe you're working on a business idea, things of that nature, or you could be expanding your audience as well if you have any kind of like online presence or your connections, like your work connections. Now, do be aware if you have Mars in your 11th house, okay, you got some haters too. You got some people in your network that aren't really your friends, okay? So just these are things to think about now while it's pre-shadow because like I said, once it goes retrograde, it's kind of like that's it. You're in for the ride. You're buckled in. All right. So really try to work towards those things now. That way they're already in motion for you come December. For our Libras, this eclipse is happening in your sign. You are the most affected by this. And I actually think this is kind of beautiful for our Libras. Now, Libra, you did have an eclipse in your sign as well last October. So keep that in mind, okay? And also really think about what you were doing around October of 2005, because this is a very similar eclipse to that, okay? Now, you are the one that is experiencing the biggest shift of anybody, all right? Now, for Libra, this is your first house. So this is about shedding an old skin, an old identity, an old persona. So a lot of Libras out there are going to feel, in order for them to, I feel like this is true for everybody, but for Libras, it's like they've been really trying to go towards a certain thing, right? Like they have a dream of what they want to be like. Now, the only way you can be that thing, Libra, is if you let go of who you were before that. If you don't let go of that, you will never get to be this next thing. And that's what this eclipse is really going to challenge you to do, okay? In order for you to find that success and fulfill this dream of yours, you're going to need to sacrifice some sense of identity, okay? So many of you also are going to have some faded relationships come up for you as this new chapter begins, okay? According to ancient astrologers, if the nodes are in your first house, then you are most likely to meet like a fated soulmate. That might be a romantic connection, but it could also be business connections, good friends, or just people that you may have known in past lives or that can help you on your life path. So really pay attention to the people that have been coming up for you in recent times, especially since maybe like July, and especially on this eclipse, okay? Even really through the year, but even really through the year because I know it's been going through Libra most of this year. But starting in July and especially on this eclipse, think about all the people that you have been really like coming across and meeting. They might be a little different than the type of people that you've been associated with before. And there's a reason for that. That's because they are more aligned with what you're supposed to be now. Okay? You're supposed to be more like those people. And then not exactly like those people. Obviously, you have your own, everyone has their own unique vibe. But in order for you to further your connections with these new people coming in, these faded friendships or these faded romantic connections for you, um, you're gonna have to let go of this old sense of who you were before. Okay. Um, now, like everybody else, this could bring about a crisis event for you. And this is true for everybody, especially cardinal signs like Libra, Aries, Cancer, and Capricorn. So if you have a cardinal sign in your big three, or if you have multiple cardinal signs in your big three, then this is like very true for you. So you might feel a sense of crisis. Okay. So you should really watch what you're doing. Okay. Take things slowly, try to avoid accidents and things like that, but also know that this sense of crisis that's coming up for you is actually trying to align you to your highest path and challenging you to let go of lower impulses and outdated attachments that you may have had in the past. Now, Mars is in its shadow period primarily in your 10th house until next April. So you might be really focused on your career. Um, Now, with it being in shadow and then retrograde, you might have some frustrations around that topic actually, or have some uncertainty about where this is really going. And the universe is asking you to trust this process, okay? And know that number one, you need to let go of something an old, maybe it's an old title, or like it could be for some of you, it might be an old job, or it might be like some kind of affiliation that you've had, maybe maybe a country you've been a part of even or something. I don't know. Like there could be a lot of associations here. Um, it's not, those are all just manifestation of a deeper thing. It's something that you thought was who you are. And the universe is saying, are you really that? Right? And so this sense is a part of why there's a confusion around the 10th house here. But with Mars in the 10th, that's a really good house for Mars to be in, actually. So you are going to make a lot of progress in your career and you just don't even know it yet. Libra don't even know it yet. Next year, especially starting around like next April, Libra placements are going to be really like bam, taking off on their career and they're feeling a strong drive to work on it. They're feeling an ambition towards that. However, you are being challenged to take your career in a totally new direction. Do not do what you did before. That is the if there's anything you take away from this Libra, that's what the number one thing I want you to think about, okay? Do not do what you did before. Do something different. Okay. You need to do a totally new direction. That is how you're going to break into something that is more successful than you have ever had. Okay. Now some of you guys might also have some tensions around authority figures. Okay. So this could be bosses, father figures, even the police for some of you. So it's really best for you to address any kind of issues that you might have with authority figures now before it goes retrograde in December. Now, don't get me wrong, when it goes retrograde in December, you might have to readdress it somehow, but it's better if you start the process before this retrograde happens so that you can avoid the battle getting really intense. Okay. And also know that honestly, you should try to avoid battles with authority figures altogether because they have the upper hand over you right now with Mars going through your 10th. So again, with Mars being in Cancer, you could have an authority figure get really reactive to you and be like, you might have a boss say to you, like, why are you doing this? What's your problem? Or like, maybe they don't give you the answer that you're looking for. This could be a governmental body, even. Maybe they give you an answer you're not really looking for about something um, in your life. Now, try not to be reactive about that is where I'm going with this. And that's the overall message with Mars and Cancer, right? Try not to react from an emotional place because you are safe. You are okay. And the things that are happening is what is supposed to unfold. It is what is supposed to happen. That is why all of this Pisces stuff is coming up, right? Trust fall into the universe and there's no need for you to fight against that authority figure. There's no need for you to like justify yourself or anything like that. Just be like, okay, it is what it is. But you guys got this. I actually think Libra is like going to be one of the best signs overall. It's just going to feel really intense for them though until next year. For Scorpio, this eclipse occurs in your 12th house. Oh, Scorpio, your intuition is going to be insane over the next 6 months. Scorpio is the most tapped into the other side of any other sign right now. Okay. So the 12th house is also the house of faraway places. So some Scorpios might be moving or dealing with issues in foreign countries or something like that, or maybe people from foreign countries or something along those lines. But with that said, the 12th house is especially about our subconscious in our internal life. Okay. So Scorpios might be dealing with a lot of internal issues and changes around that. They might be psychologically shifting there. So Scorpios may have memories resurface for them. They might have traumas that they need to readdress. And they might start to realize how those things are playing a role in their maybe fears that they have today. Maybe they have some bad habits or addictions or something like that, that might come up during this time. So you can maybe gain some new insights around any kind of like sabotaging behavior. Now, that might be self sabotage, or it might also be the type of sabotage that you are experiencing in, through the people that you have chosen to deal. Okay, so for our Scorpios, this is going to be happening in their 12th house. Okay, so their intuition is going to be insane over the next 12 months or next 6 months. Okay, this is also the house of faraway places. So some of you guys may be dealing with something from a faraway place. Maybe you're moving, or maybe you're traveling, or maybe and dealing with people from a faraway place. Those are all things that could manifest for you guys. But um, by and large, I think this is going to largely be internal for a lot of our Scorpios. Okay. Scorpios are going to be dealing a lot more with like internal issues and change. So they are psychologically shifting in some way. Okay. So they could be having maybe memories resurface, or traumas that need to be readdressed, things like that. And you might be getting some new insights into how that's playing a role in your addictions or fears or anything like that that you have, or any kind of like sabotaging behavior. So this could be maybe like self-sabotaging, as well as maybe thinking through the choices of the people that you have in your life and why you chose those places or that job or these people or whatever, and why that is sabotaging you as well. So a lot of this is like inner mindset work. Okay. You can have this is a really good opportunity though for our Scorpios to release any unconscious fears and just that sort of dead weight. Okay. So your dreams might be very intense during this time. And like I already said, like your intuition is gonna be on fire. Scorpios are the most like tapped in over the 6 months of any sign. Okay. So Scorpios definitely trust your intuition more than any other sign. Okay. This house can also be associated though with loss and sudden expenses. So definitely be aware of that and just kind of like prepare for any sudden expenses, because I can see that coming up for you as well. Now, Mars is going to be shadow primarily in your ninth house. Okay. So for until next April. So for our Scorpios, you guys might be dealing with like legal matters during this time, but don't worry, you have the strength to do that because Mars is empowering you. Okay, so you might feel driven actually to deal with any kind of legal matters as well. So it would be better to deal with it now instead of December when it goes retrograde. Now, you might need to revisit in December in some context, but it would still be better for you to take a look at that now, and then revisit it rather than start it in December. Okay. This is also a good time for you to obtain new skills or some type of study that can help you with your career later on. Okay. Your career is a lot more highlighted after this transit. So this is a good time for you to really dig into those sort of things. And also, I think a lot of Scorpios are actually going to be thinking back through their belief systems and maybe even making changes around the things that they believe. Okay. Now be cautious that you're not getting into maybe arguments with people, okay? Because it can because Mars and Cancer can definitely, like I said in the beginning of the video, can make us very like emotionally reactive about something. So you might want to fight people about certain things that you believe in, okay, during this time, but you also might be shifting or changing your beliefs or opinions later on. So don't put your foot in your mouth yet. You know what I mean? You might now say like, oh well, F you, I really think this thing, and then come December and when it goes retrograde, be like, I actually don't really know that I think that. So really just use the energy more towards making progress with those things and studying those things, studying different subjects. Like I said, maybe you're taking a course or maybe you're getting some kind of cert or something like that, or just dealing with some kind of legal matter that helps you later in your career. But for now, don't necessarily like get into it too hard in that sense. I hope that that makes sense. You may also find support from people that are of a different background from you. Maybe they're from foreign lands or just come from a different background in some way. So those are the kind of people that I think that you can definitely find something, some kind of support with. For our Sagittarius, the eclipse for our Sagittarius is happening in your 11th house. So this is the most favorable for Sagittarius of any sign. So this could start as a crisis situation like anybody else, but it's going to turn out into something really good for you guys. Most likely, the sense of crisis is going to be in your friend groups or maybe your client base or like your online presence or something like that. Okay. You may have some important developments there or learn something unsavory there. Maybe you like learn a secret about a friend, or like maybe your friend's been gossiping or saying something about you and you find out about it or something, right? Or maybe you get kicked out of a group or something along those lines, right? Um, that I can see happening for you, but even if it isn't pushed upon you, you should honestly pursue it yourself. Okay. So this is a good time maybe for you to release some old clients or colleagues or something, so that you can now meet some new people. Okay. So you might be making connections in with your soul group. Okay. Um, through maybe you join a new club and like the people in this club are just really aligned with you and you feel like you really click and you were only able to join this club because you had left, right? Like this previous club or something like that. That's an example that I'm getting at, right? The people that you meet can be more aligned to your ideals, your beliefs, and really help you to pursue your goals and your dreams. The 11th house is the house of like our highest hopes and aspirations. Okay, so to have an eclipse here is really awesome. Although there will be a clearing out of some kind, it also brings a ton of opportunity for you to make a lot of progress towards something that you've been dreaming about for a long time. Especially over the next 6 months, I see you really making progress on that. Now, Mars is going to be in shadow primarily in your eighth house. This house is associated with other people's money, money that is owed, and also psychological issues. Okay. So it would be better for you to address those kind of issues before Mars goes retrograde in December. So if you have any kind of like shared resources or something like that, for example, maybe you're applying for a loan, maybe you're dealing with like an inheritance or something along these lines, this is something you should try to deal with and nail down now because once it goes retrograde, it's going to be even harder to deal with it. And I just see a lot of arguments around that topic coming up for you guys. I think for a lot of Sagittarius, there's going to be a lot of arguments about who owes what in some kind of arrangement. So go ahead and try to deal with that now. You may need to revisit it when Mars goes retrograde. Don't get me wrong, but again, it's better to have started that process and have laid some groundwork. And you also really want to make sure that when you do address it, it is coming from like a practical place, not a reactive one. Remember that Mars in Cancer is very reactive. And if you come at it in a reactive place of feeling like you need to protect yourself or feeling like you're in danger or something, that could lead to an argument that lasts until next year with somebody. So it's really not worth it to go about it that way. Really try to go about it in a more practical approach, right? On the other hand, maybe you have a partner that is going to go through some ups and downs regarding their financial situation. I could see that happening to you as well. So just be open-minded and prepared for all things and maybe plan to budget for that those kinds of arrangements as well. For our Capricorns, this eclipse is happening in your 10th house. So Capricorn is very activated over the next couple months in general, actually, because also Pluto just re-entered their sign for the last time. in our lifetimes. So a lot of you guys are probably experiencing some major events over the next few months. Now, the eclipse specifically can help change your social status or title in some way. So I've seen people have eclipses in the 10th house when they get married or like get a promotion or immigrate to a new country or just something along those lines. Like there's likely this could be associated with your career or sense of reputation. So maybe, but again, being that this eclipse is going to require you to sacrifice something in order to get that, you may need to sacrifice maybe like an old career to get this new one, right? Or something along those lines. Or just have a major shift in regards to your relationship with bosses or authority figures. I can see that as well. Maybe some of you will get a new boss or um, authority figure that you have to deal with or something like that. This could come across to you as a crisis at first, okay? So maybe you get into a clash with your boss and then you have to leave that job and now you go get a new one, but it's better, right? Or maybe you get attacked by that boss and then they get fired and a new boss is hired that likes you more or something like that. Like that's kind of what I can see happening for you guys. Um, so really be open-minded about releasing whatever it is that is like clearly wants to go. Whatever it is that's coming up as a problem is there for you to release it so that you can find something that you are more better aligned with and put you on a better path. Okay. So that said, Mars is in its shadow period primarily in your seventh house until next year, until April. So you may have people that are coming into your life that are really going to try to push you, that are going to push your buttons and frustrate you. Okay, Mars in the seventh house brings a lot of adversarial energy. Maybe people are want to compete with you. Okay, you might be dealing with something like that too. Um, or maybe it's a partner that you're having fights with, right? Or a colleague that you're feeling that tension with. Just look at this energy as a fuel, though, as to how you can do things differently. Okay, some of these people might be coming in like they want to argue with you, but on the other hand, it also could be that they are trying to motivate you, or you could at least use it as motivation, right? To be more successful or make some important change for yourself later. Again, if you have any tough arguments that you need to have with a partner or colleague, it's better to do that before Mars goes retrograde in December and make sure that it's not coming from a reactive place. There's no need for you to protect yourself. You are safe. What is happening now is what is meant to happen. So try to come at it with a more forgiving attitude. For Aquarius, this eclipse is occurring in your ninth house. So this is the house of our higher knowledge and our belief system. So I think a lot of Aquariuses are going to go through a crisis of faith. Honestly, a lot of Aquariuses might be starting like a new course. Maybe they discover some new knowledge that helps them grow their spiritual values or philosophical values. So maybe you start a path of self-improvement or meet a new spiritual teacher that really helps you, something like that. Now, obviously, like all of us, you're going to have to sacrifice something in order for that new thing to come in. So for you guys, this is about releasing old belief systems. Okay. This, like I said, could cause a crisis of faith. Maybe you have a major realization around the way the world really is, or maybe you're questioning what it is that you really believe in. So Aquarius is the best thing you can do with this energy is really look at maybe like old programming that you have. This programming can be from a variety of things. Maybe it's a cultural thing that you've been forced, not forced, but taught to believe in that you need to be like or need to do. Or maybe it's like an old religion that you were a part of that doesn't really align with you anymore, that has set some mindsets in you that you need to live a certain way that is and that's actually holding you back, right? Things along those lines. Um, anything that's outdated and no longer aligning with what you really believe in is going to be highlighted as a very dysfunctional belief for you. Okay. I think a lot of this is going to be a lot more internal for our Aquariuses, to be honest. And a lot of it's probably related to like old religious teachers, maybe father figures too, or philosophical beliefs that they're still doing and they don't even know why they still do it. Now the Mars itself will be in its shadow period primarily in your sixth house. Okay, so this is the house of health, work, and well-being. So some of our Aquariuses could have some health issues come up as well. If so, these health issues are likely due to your environment, which is good because it means it's something that you can change. Mars suggests an inflammatory issue as well, so that could be a factor. Just putting that out there for some of you guys, that'll be true. Now, Cancerian activities can help you also work through any of those, anything that comes up that feels health related for you. So that could be like going swimming, maybe being in the water, drinking lots of water, or even drinking hot water, I've heard could be helpful. Things along those lines. This house is also associated with pets. So maybe getting a pet or spending a lot of time with a pet can maybe be healing for you. But mainly, though, this is really about releasing some kind of routine that you've been a part of or a bad habit that you have or something like that. And this habit probably has an emotional attachment because it's in Cancer, right? So look at the things that you do to self-soothe and self-medicate. And in thinking about that in conjunction, right, with the eclipse happening in your ninth house, maybe like an example might be maybe you grew up thinking that you need to always get up at a certain time, but actually it's not good for you to get up at that time or something. I don't know if that's even a good example, right? But I just get the sense that for Aquariuses, there is a mindset that they have that is actually outdated for them now and is causing them discomfort. And that could be physical discomfort, but it also could be just feeling a sense of feeling unfulfilled or like they're not aligned with their path or something like that. So the best like I said, the best thing that you can say, the best thing that you can do, because I know Aquarius is I love you guys. You guys can sometimes avoid feeling certain emotions. Let yourself feel those things though. Think about the things that you do to avoid those emotions, and maybe those are the things that you might want to get rid of. But at its core, I think it's probably something that you've just been raised to believe is something that you have to do or believe in. Um, be proactive about it now because you can start to see real progress in those areas before Mars goes retrograde in December. For our Pisces, last but not least, the eclipse is happening in your eighth house. Okay. So the eighth house is the house of our psychology, joint finances, as well as loss. It's a very intense house. Okay. So I think a lot of it for a lot of you guys, this is going to be mainly internal. This can bring up a lot of subconscious issues and trauma. Maybe you have something like this come up for you in a very intense way. Okay. I do think that you're going to feel very liberated afterwards and release a lot of fears for yourself and find a new source of support from somebody else. Okay. But in order to get that support, you're going to have to also sacrifice something or let something go. So, maybe you find out something unsavory about something you have been relying on, right? Like maybe somehow you this could be maybe your partner's money, right? Or maybe it's a loan that you've been using or just something that you have been able to rely upon. Maybe you get some shocking news now that you can't rely on that anymore. Um, and this is going to bring up some deep psychological stuff for many of you guys as well. Okay. However, in the wake of this, what you're going to find is that you're going to receive new support from others. Maybe there's like an inheritance that you get next, or um, maybe somebody feels sorry for you and is like, hey, you can stay with me. I'm your shoulder to cry on, or something like that. I think that you guys will really benefit from maybe doing some deep research into your own psychology, maybe working with like a therapist or other kind of like occult matters like astrology or something like that. Those are all ruled by the eighth house also. So I think that you can find a lot of progress in just embracing that change. Okay. Now, Mars will be in shadow primarily in your fifth house. That's the house of romance, children, and projects. Ooh, a lot of you guys are getting some spicy times, and there's a lot of drama around your love life. Okay, some of you guys might be hooking up back with people that you've been with in the past, or some of you guys might be having arguments about children. Some of you guys might be trying to get pregnant or getting pregnant, even depending upon your own specific chart. Obviously, what I can say for sure is there's a lot of fire and drama in this area of your life until next April. Um, if you have any tough conversations that you need to have regarding children or business project you're working on or something like that, do that now before Mars goes retrograde in December. Okay. And try to avoid emotionally explosive episodes because remember that Mars and Cancer can make us feel like we are in danger and we need to fight somebody. And you might, like, for example, I can see a Pisces feeling like they need to fight with their kid or fight for their kid about something. Um, don't do it from that angle. Try to do it from a more productive angle because if not, it could end up causing a argument that doesn't really go anywhere and continues until like next spring. So those are all things to think about as well. I hope this helps. You guys, it's gonna be, listen, this is a good eclipse, I swear. I know it's gonna feel like a lot for a lot of people, but it's really just trying to clear out something and put you on the right path so that it can bring something new to you. So just let the thing go. Let it go with the flow, and let the universe bless you and bring in new things into your life. Good luck, you guys.